On Wednesday, when I saw her sitting there, hunkered over, quietly waiting in a Band-Aid beige folding metal chair, it seemed my heart wanted to just abandon my body altogether and to find some place closer to her. Perhaps to nestle in a pocket of her crisp cotton dress shirt or to sprawl across the cushion of her curly onyx hair. And then she turned and, like, for a moment, she sat in shock, as if, it didn't compute that I could possibly be standing there. And then she sprung from the chair and we hugged so tight, like both of us could feel each other's stomach trembling with, happy and relieved tears, as, just finally allowed to release. And we pulled back and we just kind of looked at each other and we hugged again. And then it was just, back to the silly dances and kind of laughter we had the last time I saw her in January. Such a tugging this one has on my being. The kind of tugging that seems forged of blood, of family, of some desperate panic to scoop her from an environment of added trauma, the sickly, familiar kind I once also had to stare in the eyes. At any cost would I protect her from a second more of that. We had a moment to catch up on what had happened since I'd left her, and the story was bleak. The gang violence in her neighborhood had stepped up, and there were gunshots all of the time. She described how she and Lonzy would run or dive to the ground, when they'd hear these things. And, she hated where she was, and there was always fighting, and she never felt safe. She told me it had become harder for her to get food. She'd go days without, sometimes, so Lonzy could eat. She looked thinner to me, which seemed nearly impossible. She'd been so tiny before. Her skin pulled paper thin over zygomatic and clavicle. And Lonzy had been sick. She'd gone to the hospital where they gave her some pills, but they didn't have the money to go back to the next appointment. And Dani, I could tell, was feeling powerless, but never beaten. Not Dani. But how on earth was I going to make it until Saturday to, be able to give her this amazing news that would uplift her spirits? So I sent her home, with some sandwiches and some clothes and some vitamins for Lanzi. And I bid her farewell for the next few days of work with our team, at the clinic. Um, and but at last, Saturday did come, and before leaving Haiti to return to the States, our incredible and caring driver that I can't say enough about, Johnson, brought Dani up to meet us at the guest house under the pretense that she was going to go to a hospital in Mirabelais for a regular checkup, but that we had a few stops to make first. Our two cars rolled through the streets of Port-au-Prince, with Dani and I in the back seat, where we passed by chickens running around on the street, and she'd say, "Oh," and I'd repeat it until she was satisfied I'd learned the Creole term for it and say, "Oui." Then we'd pass by a goat, and she'd pronounce "Pavli," and laugh at the ridiculous and contorted sounds that would emit from my, obviously foreign face hole as I tried to make the words sound as smooth as hers, and she'd be like roiling with laughter listening to me. Eventually, we made it to the, familiar, safe neighborhood with the house where I'd visited with her in January. And, she didn't seem to have a clue why we had to stop there, but, didn't suspect anything. She knew Johnson had friends who lived there in the area, so it wasn't a big deal. We pulled up to the house, and our whole team exited the two cars we'd arrived in. Johnson secretly handed me the keys to what would soon be Dani and Lonzy's new house, while everyone else sort of stretched their legs and took in the crispy views of the beautiful mountains, looming on the horizon in the distance. I stepped to the house, and I pulled out some papers from my pack. On the papers were scrawled the Creole words I'd gotten Harold to translate for me, and that I'd also practiced until 3 a.m. the night before, so I could say what I repeat to you now in Creole, the language of her birth. I called Dani to the stand beside me, and I said these words: Dani, I know that your life has been a big struggle since the earthquake. I was so inspired by your courage when I met you, and was happy to make you my friend. I see you as my daughter, and I wish to care for you like a mother. When I returned to the US, I told people of your story, your courage, and your hardships, and they too were inspired. I gathered support for you over these last months since we've been apart, and more than 50 people contributed to help give you and Lanzi a better life. I love you, Dani. So today, we all give you the keys to a new future.
Saibu, clear, Saibu, Kala.
Did you see that face? Here, check that out again.
Saibu, clear, Saibu, Kala. J'ai pas voulu dire histoire là. Ce sont surprises d'idées.
So, after we walked through the rooms of her new house, and she and I must have done our ridiculous happy dance in every one of them. The group of us then, ambled along the sidewalks and gazed over at what would be Lanzi's school, like right across the street from the house. Dani would put flowers in my hair, like the flowers I once made for her prosthetic, and she'd look up and say, "Beautiful," in English. She'd smile and we'd walk some more. Back in the car on the way back to the clinic, to pack our bags to leave Haiti, we passed by the stand in the marketplace with the music, and with the Doppler effect as we passed, I heard, "Every little thing gonna be all right." And I'd be looking out my window for minutes at a time, but every time my eyes turned back to her, I'd catch her staring up at me with these, wide, just gracious, beautiful eyes, until finally she took a very deep breath. And when she exhaled, she fell into my lap and said, "Mon mon." And there she slept hard for the rest of the trip back. So deeply, it was as if it had been the first time she had really rested since the earthquake. Thank you all so, so, so very much for your caring contributions. Merci en pile. And for letting my beautiful, beautiful Dani dream again.